Down in Owen County, Kentucky today at a road cut in Monterey. Found some pretty cool things already. We've got this really nice straight-shelled nautiloid cephalopod with both the outer shell and the inner shell. The inner shell is a siphon that it would use, or siphuncle, I think, that it would use to fill up the chambers and control its buoyancy. So that's pretty cool. There are lots and lots of fragments of Isotelus. There is a Isotelus hypostome. That's the mouth part. Pretty big piece there. Stuff is just chock full of fragments of Isotelus. Here is part of the cephalon, the head of an Isotelus, small one. You can see the spines there at the end. I think this is the underside actually, so it's upside down. And you see some other pieces and parts of it here. And a gastropod. Lots of gastropods here. Really cool spot. Let's keep looking. Here's a cool little chunk. A lot of the rocks here have pyrite mixed in, so we get some little rusting oxidized pyrite. Lots of brachiopods, bryozoans. Here is another great piece filled with parts and pieces of Isotelus. You can see that even when they're preserved as crushed pieces. There's a head and spine there, tails, midsections. All trilobites are arthropods, and arthropods, as they grow, shed their shell, their outer skin, to get bigger. And as that happened with trilobites, a lot of times those shed exoskeletons would actually wind up being preserved as fossils. So when you see a lot of disarticulated parts like this, these are probably sheds that just didn't survive being tumbled or buried in the rock after the trilobite shed it. So we see a lot of fragments and parts and pieces. There's a really nice Isotelus tail, pygidium, with some very tiny brachiopods in association with it, some larger brachiopods. I see most of the Isotelus fossils here in this more shale-like layer, kind of a mudstone. I've heard it called butter shale. It's all limestone technically, as it is calcium carbonate. But I find it that most of the trilobite parts are in those rocks. So I'm not sure where exactly that's coming down from. But you also see these gastropods, really big, high coiled shelled gastropods alongside all of those Isotelus pieces. There's a nice genial spine, the side of the head. Really cool. So many parts and pieces. Would love to find a whole one. I've only ever found one here. Now this is cool. I don't normally find trace fossils super interesting, but this is cool. Look at this snaky trace fossil burrow, or feeding trace. I'm not sure what exactly it might be, but it is just so weird looking. That is so cool. There's other pieces, other traces in this. You can see it kind of pops out in some spots. There's this very, very flaky shale. Oh, that's cool. What a weird trace fossil. Okay, I'm up the road just a little ways past the entrance to 355 on 127. There's a little bit of different outcrop up a little further north. Shaly stuff is up high, and I've already found a very tiny Isotelus tail down here at the bottom. So I'm going to give this spot a check out, see what we find. Lots of cool stuff, it looks like. A lot of different bits and pieces. Little bit of everything mixed in here. Here's a cool little cephalopod. You see the chambers. Now, I picked it up because I thought that might have been a trilobite, but it is a small section of crinoid. So, not a trilobite, but cool all the way. Here's something that's super common, but still always fun to see. We've got a branching bryozoan here and a short section of crinoid or sea lily. Super common stuff. This is a neat piece. It's filled with crinoid columns, some trilobite segments that are probably flexicalamin, and then some cryptolithus parts. So cryptolithus is a sometimes called a laced cheek trilobite. You often only see the free cheeks or the very edge of the cephalon, the head, being preserved. So that's up here a little further north on 127, a little bit further up this outcrop, probably coming down from up there. So yeah, kind of cool, something different. 3 different species of trilobites today, at least 3 spotted, so that's cool. Here's another good assortment of trilobite parts. We've got some cryptolithus cheeks. There's a tail of a flexicalamin. There's another tail. Here's a head of a flexi, body segments. Good mix of things in this piece. Nothing complete though. There's another little head. I might keep that one. Nothing complete though. A little further north on 127 here, we've got an outcrop that is just absolutely chock full of brachiopods, just all over the place, and bryozoans. Probably the most common fossils here in Owen County are the brachiopods and bryozoans. So that's cool. Pretty common. Regular old stuff. Brachiopods are so common in Kentucky, they are actually our state fossil. There's not just one species as the state fossil, but the entire group, because there are so many different brachiopods found here in Kentucky. My favorite place to look for brachiopods is in a creek, not a road cut like this, because they'll often pop out and get weathered and naturally polished and cleaned by water in a creek. Although there's a lot of good loose ones here. So, yeah, brachiopods. Here are some of the other fossils that I've collected there in Monterey. Love these high spiral gastropods. Those are always really cool. There's some of those. That one has a flexicalamin head and part of a cryptolithus trilobite on it, which is really interesting. This, what I thought was a trilobite to start with, is actually a type of Nautilus cephalopod, which has a little bit of a curved shell instead of a straight orthocone shell like most of the cephalopods you find down around northern Kentucky. So this is a really interesting and rare cephalopod shell. Hoping someday I can prep out the rest of that one. Here is a very large Isotelus tail with some, looks like, damage to it. That is not a piece of rock covering part of the tail. That is a damaged section of the tail. So that was a pretty cool find. Here is a straight Nautilus siphuncle, siphon. That's the inside part preserved there. That's really cool. Has some quartz crystals that filled it in. So some random pieces. There's another flexicalamine head fragment. Lots of those. And this one has a lot of fragments of Cryptolithus and other things. It's a really cool cephalopod down there. More trilobite parts and pieces. Really cool stuff. There's some big Cryptolithus parts in this one. I'm hoping to eventually clean this up and see if there are any complete ones. It'll be really fun. Nice big section of those. Let's see what else is here from... Oops. Here's two Isotelus tails next to each other from a piece down in Monterey. Let's see. Here's another large, worn, and very weathered Isotelus tail. And this is the best Isotelus I have found, nearly complete from that area. You can actually see the head and the eye stalks poking out, several body segments, and then the tail. Unfortunately, it was highly weathered, so a lot of it has already flaked off. I'm hoping to be able to prepare around it and expose a little bit more of that. So that's a really cool Isotelus. That's from that outcrop in Monterey, down on 127 in Kentucky. So yeah, really cool stuff.